The mining outpost on Kepler 442b was not supposed to be interesting. For 8 months, the crew of the New Dawn colony had been digging through ancient ruins, finding nothing but rocks and broken pieces of things nobody could identify. Daehyun had accepted this job because it paid well, not because he cared about old alien civilizations. He was a technician who cataloged artifacts, which meant he spent his nights alone in a warehouse full of dusty objects, scanning them and writing boring reports. Tonight was different. The excavation team had brought in something new from Sector 7. When Daehyun first saw it, he stopped walking and just stared. It was a statue, but not like the broken fragments they usually found. This one was perfect. It stood 3 meters tall, carved from some kind of crystal that seemed to glow faintly in the warehouse lights. The statue showed a woman with delicate features and flowing robes. Her eyes were closed and her lips were curved in the smallest hint of a smile. Daehyun walked around it slowly. The detail was incredible. Every fold of the robe looked soft, even though it was solid crystal. Patterns covered the surface, swirling designs that seemed to shift when he moved his head. He had never seen anything like it in all his months here. His communicator buzzed. It was Tai-min, his friend who worked in the excavation crew.
Hey, did you see what we brought you?
Pretty amazing, right? It's definitely something, Daehyun replied. Dr. Yuna is going to lose her mind when she sees this in the morning. She already saw it. She's the one who insisted we bring it to the warehouse right away. She thinks it might be 1,000 years old, maybe older. Tai-min paused. I'm coming over. This night shift is killing me with boredom. 10 minutes later, Tai-min arrived with 2 cups of terrible coffee from the break room. They sat on equipment crates staring at the statue. The warehouse was quiet except for the hum of environmental systems. She looked sad, Tai-min said suddenly. What? Daehyun looked at his friend. The statue. Look at her face. She looks like she's waiting for something that never came. Daehyun looked again. Tai-min was right. There was something melancholy about the expression, despite the smile. You're getting philosophical. The isolation is getting to you. 8 months without seeing Earth, 8 months in this boring place. Of course it's getting to me. Tai-min grinned suddenly. You know what this reminds me of? Those old fairy tales from Earth, Sleeping Beauty. True love's kiss breaking the spell. Daehyun laughed. Are you seriously comparing an ancient alien artifact to a children's story? I'm just saying she looks like she's waiting for someone to wake her up. Tai-min's grin widened. I dare you to kiss it. What? No, that's ridiculous. Come on, when was the last time anything interesting happened here? The crew would love it. I'll record it, we'll post it on the entertainment channel. Everyone gets a good laugh. We all need something to smile about. Daehyun looked at the statue again. It was just a piece of stone after all. Or crystal. Whatever it was made of. Dr. Yuna would probably be angry if she found out, but she didn't need to know. And Tai-min was right about one thing. The crew needed something to lift their spirits. Fine, Daehyun said, standing up. But you owe me a week of coffee. Deal. Tai-min pulled out his personal recorder and pointed it at Daehyun. This is going to be great. Daehyun walked up to the statue, feeling silly. He had to stand on his toes to reach her face. The crystal was cool under his hands as he steadied himself. Up close, he could see even more detail in the carved features. For just a moment, he felt strange, like he was doing something important instead of just making a joke. He pressed his lips against the statue's lips. The crystal rippled. Daehyun jumped back so fast he almost fell. The surface of the statue was moving, flowing like water even though it stayed solid. The patterns across its surface began to glow with bright blue light that filled the entire warehouse. Tai-min dropped his recorder, his mouth open in shock. The statue's eyes opened. They were not the blank, crystal eyes of a carving. They were real eyes with irises that swirled like galaxies. The lips curved into a wider smile. The statue took a breath, and Daehyun could hear it, a soft intake of air that shouldn't be possible for stone. She spoke. Her voice was like music, resonating through the warehouse in a language Daehyun didn't understand. But her meaning was clear in the way she looked at him, with recognition and relief and something like joy. Then she spoke again, and this time the words were clear. At last. You've awakened me. Alarms started blaring throughout the facility. The statue, no, the woman, because she was clearly alive, stepped down from her pedestal. Her movements were fluid and graceful. The crystal substance of her body seemed to solidify into something more like skin, though it still glowed faintly. Dae-hyun couldn't move. His brain was trying to process what was happening and failing completely. Behind him, Tae-min was shouting something, but it sounded far away. The warehouse doors burst open. Security guards rushed in with weapons drawn. Behind them came Dr. Yuna, still in her sleep clothes, her hair messy. Her face showed a mixture of scientific excitement and absolute horror. "Nobody move," the head of security shouted. "Step away from the artifact." The woman turned to look at the security team. She didn't seem afraid. She tilted her head slightly, studying them the way a teacher might study confused students. Then she looked back at Dae-hyun. She said something else in that musical language. The translation AI in the facility's computer system crackled to life over the speakers. It struggled with the words, offering fragments, contract, awaken, trial, humanity. "This is a first contact situation," Dr. Yuna said, her voice shaking. "Everyone stay calm. Lower your weapons slowly. Ma'am, protocol requires—" "I don't care about protocol right now." Dr. Yuna stepped forward carefully, her hands raised in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Can you understand me?" The woman looked at Dr. Yuna and nodded once. She pointed at Dae-hyun and spoke again. The translation AI did better this time. "He is the one. The Awakener. The contract begins." "What contract?" Dae-hyun finally found his voice. "I didn't agree to anything. I just kissed a statue." One of the security guards raised his weapon higher. "We need to contain this situation. Tranquilizer rounds on my mark." The woman raised one hand. Every piece of technology in the warehouse died instantly. The lights went out. The alarms cut off mid-blare. The weapon's electronic targeting systems failed. Even Taemin's dropped recorder stopped working. The only light came from the woman herself, her glowing form illuminating the darkness. In that light, her expression was patient and kind, but also infinitely powerful. She spoke again, and this time her words came out in perfect Korean with no translation needed. Her voice echoed in the darkness of the warehouse. "I am Hae-won, guardian of the threshold. I have waited here for 1,043 years. The contract is sealed by the Awakener's touch. Your species has passed the first trial, though you did not know you were being tested. Now the true trials begin. Humanity will be judged, and I will be your guide. Fail, and your species will remain forever confined to your small corner of space. Succeed, and the galaxy will open before you." She lowered her hand. The lights flickered back to life. The alarms remained silent, but all the other systems rebooted slowly. Hae-won looked directly at Dae-hyun with those impossible eyes. "I hope you are ready, Awakener. Everything changes now." Dae-hyun looked at Tae-min, who was pale and shaking. He looked at Dr. Yuna, who was staring at Hae-won like all her dreams and nightmares had come true at once. He looked at the security team, who seemed completely out of their depth. Then he looked back at Hae-won, the ancient being he had awakened with a joke and a dare. "I think," Dae-hyun said slowly, "I'm going to need more than coffee to deal with this." They moved Hae-won to a containment facility, though everyone knew it was pointless. She had already shown she could disable their technology with a thought. But she went willingly, walking calmly between nervous security guards who kept their distance. Dae-hyun was required to come along. Apparently, as the Awakener, he was part of whatever was happening now. The facility was really just a large room with reinforced walls and observation windows. They brought in chairs and a table, trying to make it look like a meeting instead of a prison. Dr. Yuna insisted on being present. So did Ji-woo, the colony's diplomatic officer, a woman who had been trained for first contact scenarios but probably never expected to actually use that training. Administrator Kyung-soo watched from behind the observation glass, along with what seemed like half the colony's leadership. Hae-won sat at the table like she was attending a casual lunch. Her glow had faded to something softer, less intimidating. She looked almost human now, except for her eyes and the faint shimmer of her skin. She waited patiently while everyone got settled and recording equipment was set up. "Let's start with something basic," Ji-woo said, her diplomatic training taking over. "You said your name is Hae-won. Can you tell us where you come from?" "I come from a world that no longer exists," Hae-won replied. Her Korean was perfect with no accent. "My people were called the Ilhari. We built a civilization that spanned many star systems. That was 3,000 years ago." Dr. Yuna leaned forward. 3,000 years? But you said you've been in stasis for only 1,000 years. I was placed in stasis 1,000 years ago. My civilization fell 2,000 years before that. Heywan's expression became sad. We had time to prepare before the end. Time to make plans. Time to leave guardians behind. Guardians for what? Daehyun asked. He was still trying to wrap his head around the fact that he was talking to someone who was over 1,000 years old. Heywan looked at him with those strange, swirling eyes. Guardians to test the species that would come after us. Guardians to find those worthy of inheriting what we left behind. Guardians to prepare the galaxy for what is coming. The room went quiet. Finally, Jiwoo spoke again. You mentioned trials. Can you explain what you mean? The trial of awakening was the first test, Heywan said. My people placed guardians like me on many worlds. Most species that find us react with fear or worship or greed. They try to destroy us or control us or study us as objects. Your species was different. She looked at Daehyun again. You approached me with humor and curiosity. You were willing to be foolish, to take a risk for something as simple as making your friends laugh. That willingness to connect even across impossible differences, even through something as silly as a kiss. That was what we were waiting for. Most species are too rigid, too afraid. They fail the first trial without ever knowing it was a test. Daehyun felt his face getting hot. So because I made a stupid joke, I've volunteered all of humanity for some kind of cosmic test? Yes, Heywan said simply. The awakener becomes the anchor. Through you, I am bound to your species. Where you go, I can follow. If you die, I return to stasis until another awakener comes, if one ever does. And through this bond, humanity enters the threshold trials. What happens if we fail these trials? Administrator Kyung-soo's voice came through the speakers from the observation room. Heywan turned to look at the glass. If you fail, you will be confined. There are powers in this galaxy older than you can imagine. They watch for dangerous species, civilizations that would spread chaos and destruction. If you fail the trials, they will place barriers around your home system. You will have your sun and your planets, but you will never reach the stars beyond. You will be contained. And if we pass? Dr. Yuna asked, if you pass, you inherit technology beyond your current understanding, knowledge of the galaxy's history, alliance with those who have passed before you, and the responsibility of facing what my people could not defeat. Heywan's voice became heavy. There is a reason we went into stasis. There is a threat in this galaxy that even the Ilhari could not stop. We are not hiding from it. We are waiting for someone who can do what we could not. Jiwoo exchanged glances with Dr. Yuna. What kind of threat? That is for later, Heywan said. First, you must prove yourselves worthy. 3 trials remain. The trial of ingenuity will test your minds and your ability to adapt. The trial of compassion will test your hearts and your unity. The final trial, she paused. The final trial is why I exist. It is why guardians were placed across the galaxy. It is the test that matters most. Daehyun felt a chill run down his spine. What is the final trial? You will face it when the time comes, Heywan said. If you survive the first 2. The next several hours were filled with questions. Heywan answered some completely, others only partially, and some not at all. She explained that the Ilhari had been biological beings like humans, but they had learned to transfer their consciousness into other forms. The crystal material she was made from was called memory stone. It could hold not just a body but a mind, perfectly preserved, for thousands of years. She told them about the galaxy beyond human space. There were other species out there, some friendly, some hostile, most simply indifferent to newcomers. The Ilhari had tried to build a peaceful federation once. It had lasted 300 years before it fell apart. Why did it fail? Dr. Yuna asked. Because unity is hard, Heywan said. Because species are different and differences create conflict. Because even the wise make mistakes. We learned much from our failures. That knowledge is part of what you can inherit if you prove worthy. Through it all, Daehyun felt a strange sensation in the back of his mind. It was like someone was there, not reading his thoughts, but present, connected. When Heywan looked at him, the feeling grew stronger. You feel the bond, Heywan said, noticing his expression. The anchor connection. Through it, I can sense your presence, your emotions, sometimes your thoughts if they are very strong, and you can sense me, though you do not yet know how to interpret what you feel. That's invasive, Daehyun said. It is necessary. The trials will require trust between us. This bond ensures that trust is possible. Heywan smiled slightly. Do not worry. I have no interest in your private thoughts. I have been alone for 1,000 years. Having any connection to another mind, even a limited one, is a gift. The questioning continued until Administrator Kyung-soo called for a break. Everyone needed time to process what they had learned. As the room cleared, only Dae-hyun remained, too overwhelmed to move. Hae-won stood and walked to the window, looking out at the alien landscape of Kepler 442b. "You are afraid," she said softly. "Of course I'm afraid," Dae-hyun replied. "I'm nobody. I'm just a technician who scans old rocks. I'm not qualified to be humanity's representative or anchor or whatever. My awakener was a young warrior of his people, brave but impulsive," Hae-won said. "He awoke me by accident when he struck me with his weapon, thinking I was an enemy. He failed the first trial because his first instinct was violence. His species never got the chance to try again." She turned to look at Dae-hyun. "You are qualified because you were kind. Because you value joy and connection. Because when you saw something beautiful and strange, you approached it with gentle humor rather than fear or aggression. These qualities are rarer than you know. What happened to that warrior's species?" Dae-hyun asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "They are confined to their system," Hae-won said. "They still live, but they will never know the stars. Perhaps in another 1,000 years they will have changed enough for another chance. Perhaps not." Before Dae-hyun could respond, alarms started blaring again. Administrator Kyung-soo's voice came over the speakers. "We have a situation. Long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures across the planet. Something is activating." Hae-won closed her eyes. "It has begun. The trial grounds are waking up. You have 3 days before the trial of ingenuity manifests fully. I suggest you prepare." "How do we prepare for something we don't understand?" Dae-hyun asked. "Choose your team carefully," Hae-won said. "You will need people who can think in new ways. People who work well together. People who will not give up when the challenge seems impossible." She looked at him seriously. "And you must choose quickly. Once the trial begins, there is no going back. You must face it or forfeit, and forfeit means failure." Over the next 2 days, the entire colony buzzed with activity and fear. News had reached Earth, and the response was chaotic. Some wanted to celebrate the discovery. Others demanded that Dae-hyun and Hae-won be brought to Earth immediately. The Seoul coalition government sent messages every few hours, each one more insistent than the last. Dae-hyun selected his team. Taemin, because he had been there from the beginning. Dr. Yuna, because her scientific mind would be essential. Bo-young, a brilliant engineer who could look at any machine and understand it. They spent hours with Hae-won, learning what little she could tell them about what was coming. On the 3rd day, a massive structure rose from the planet's surface 20 kilometers from the colony. It was geometric and impossible, a shape that hurt to look at because it seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. It hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. The structure was even more disturbing up close. It looked like someone had taken geometry and broken all the rules, creating angles that shouldn't exist and surfaces that seemed to fold into themselves. Dae-hyun felt dizzy just looking at it. Behind them, the entire colony watched through cameras and sensors, everyone holding their breath. The entrance appeared when they got within 10 meters, a doorway that simply hadn't been there a moment before. Beyond it was darkness and a faint blue glow. "Last chance to back out," Dae-hyun said, though he knew none of them would. "And miss being part of history?" Taemin tried to joke, but his voice shook. "Not a chance." They stepped through together. Inside was impossible. The space was huge, far larger than the structure's exterior could contain. The walls moved, sliding and rotating constantly. The floor was solid under their feet, but when Dae-hyun looked down, he could see stars, like they were standing on nothing. Gravity felt wrong, not absent, just inconsistent, pulling in different directions depending on where they stood. "Stay together," Dr. Yuna said, her scientist brain trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "This is some kind of spatial manipulation. The structure exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "That doesn't help us," Bo-young muttered, looking around nervously. "Where do we even go?" As if in answer, a path lit up in front of them, glowing lines on the floor leading deeper into the structure. They followed it because there was nothing else to do. The path twisted and turned, sometimes going up when it should go down, sometimes looping back on itself in ways that made Dae-hyun's head hurt. Time felt strange too. Dae-hyun's watch kept stopping and starting randomly. Taemin mentioned being hungry, but Bo-young said they had only been inside for 10 minutes. Dr. Yuna checked her equipment and found that every clock was showing a different time. Don't focus on the time, Dr. Yuna said. Focus on the path. The path led them to a chamber. It was circular and vast, with walls that displayed moving images of stars and galaxies. In the center of the chamber sat a machine. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a complex device of metal and crystal humming with energy, covered in symbols that looked almost like equations but not quite. Around the machine, displays showed 3 different things. One showed the colony peaceful and normal. Another showed the colony consumed in some kind of energy storm. The third showed the colony simply gone with nothing but empty ground where it had been. "The trial begins," a voice said. It wasn't Haywan's voice. It was neutral, artificial, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Before you stands the threshold engine. It generates probability fields, creating outcomes before they manifest. It is currently unstable. You have 3 choices. Deactivate the engine and prevent all outcomes. Stabilize the engine and choose which outcome manifests. Or understand the engine's true purpose and transcend the limited choices presented. You have until the engine reaches critical state. Time remaining 4 hours. The voice fell silent. Numbers appeared on one of the displays counting down. 4 hours, Taemin said. That's not much time. Bo-young approached the engine carefully, studying it from all angles. I've never seen anything like this. The power source alone is beyond our technology. And these controls. She reached out, then pulled her hand back. I don't even know what half of these symbols mean. Dr. Yuna was examining the displays showing the 3 outcomes. A binary choice trap. We're supposed to panic and pick between deactivation and stabilization, but the voice mentioned a third option, transcending the choices. What does that even mean? Dae-hyun asked. I don't know yet. Dr. Yuna started taking readings with her equipment, but I think the key is understanding what the engine actually does, not just reacting to what we're told it does. They worked frantically. Bo-young tried to map the engine's systems, creating diagrams that grew more complex by the minute. Taemin helped by recording everything, creating a database they could search through. Dr. Yuna ran tests, measuring energy patterns and probability fields. 2 hours passed. They were no closer to understanding. Dae-hyun felt useless. The others had skills, engineering, science, technical knowledge. What did he have? He was just a cataloger. He spent his days scanning objects and writing reports that nobody read. He sat down, staring at the engine, letting his mind drift. That's when he felt it, the bond with Haywan. It was faint like a whisper at the edge of his thoughts. She couldn't help directly, but her presence was there, watching, hoping. What would Haywan do? What would the Ilhari have done? Then Dae-hyun remembered something she had said. The Ilhari had fallen because they had become too rigid, too focused on their own solutions. They had failed to adapt when adaptation was needed. He looked at the 3 outcomes displayed on the screens. Colony safe, colony destroyed, colony gone. Binary choices. Limited thinking. What if we're looking at this wrong? Dae-hyun said suddenly. The others turned to look at him. The voice said the engine generates probability fields, creating outcomes before they manifest. What if it's not broken? What if it's waiting? Waiting for what? Bo-young asked. For input, for someone to tell it what outcome to create. Dae-hyun stood up, walking closer to the engine. Think about it. The Ilhari were testing us. They wouldn't create a test where the only options are save the colony or destroy it. That's not a test of ingenuity. That's just a test of choosing the obvious answer. Dr. Yuna's eyes widened. You're saying the engine is a tool, not a threat. The 3 outcomes shown are just suggestions, or limitations to see if we'd think beyond them, Dae-hyun said. What if we can input our own outcome? That's a big assumption, Taemin said. What if you're wrong? Then we fail, and we move on to the next trial. Dae-hyun looked at the countdown. 1 hour and 20 minutes left. But if I'm right, we need to figure out what to ask for. Bo-young joined him at the engine. If it can create outcomes and if we can control it, what would we even request? Technology? Weapons? No, Dr. Yuna said firmly. Remember what Haywan told us. The Ilhari fell because of their rigidity, because species are different and differences create conflict. What humanity needs most isn't power. It's understanding. Dae-hyun felt the bond with Haywan pulse with something that felt like approval. A translator. Not just for language, but for concepts. For understanding how other species think and see the world. A universal understanding engine, Dr. Yuna breathed. That's brilliant. That's exactly the kind of creative thinking they're looking for. Can we even program that into this thing? Taemin asked. We can try, Bo Young said, already working on the controls. If I'm reading these symbols right, this panel here is for input parameters, and these might be outcome specifications. They work together, combining their knowledge. Bo Young handled the technical aspects, translating their desires into something the machine might understand. Dr. Yuna provided the theoretical framework for what they were trying to create. Taemin helped coordinate, making sure everyone was working toward the same goal. Daehyun stood back, watching them work. He felt the bond with Haewon again, stronger now. Through it, he sensed her emotions, pride, hope, and a deep sadness that he didn't fully understand. 30 minutes left. I think we have it, Bo Young said. But I need to verify the input sequence. If I get this wrong, there's no telling what will happen. You won't get it wrong, Daehyun said, surprising himself with his confidence. You're brilliant. Trust yourself. Bo Young took a deep breath and began entering the sequence. The engine responded immediately. The humming changed pitch, becoming almost musical. The symbols on its surface rearranged themselves, forming patterns that looked like flowing water. The 3 outcome displays flickered and changed, showing something new, images of humans talking with beings that were clearly not human, understanding passing between them without confusion or conflict. It's accepting the input, Dr. Yuna said, her voice full of wonder. We're actually doing this. 10 minutes left. The engine's core began to glow brighter. Energy flowed through it in visible waves. The chamber itself seemed to respond, the walls stabilizing, the impossible geometry becoming more comprehensible. Above them, the ceiling opened up, revealing a sky full of stars. 5 minutes. Final confirmation required, the artificial voice said. Outcome specified. Universal Understanding Seed. A tool for connection across cognitive differences. This choice reflects values of communication over conquest, understanding over domination. Confirm selection? Daehyun stepped forward. The interface panel in front of him showed a simple symbol, a circle with lines radiating from it, connecting to other circles. It looked like people holding hands. He pressed his palm against it. Confirmed, he said. The engine reached its critical state. Instead of exploding or failing, it transformed. The entire machine seemed to condense, folding in on itself, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just a sphere of light floating at chest height. The light was warm and welcoming. Trial of ingenuity, complete, the voice said. Assessment success. The awakened species has demonstrated creative thinking, collaborative problem-solving, and value-driven decision-making. They have chosen connection over power. The reward is granted. 3 days after passing the trial of ingenuity, something unexpected happened. 3 massive ships appeared in orbit around Kepler 442b, dropping out of hyperspace with energy signatures that made every sensor in the colony scream warnings. They were huge, each one larger than any human vessel ever built, made from the same memory stone material as Haewon. The colony went into emergency mode. Admiral Dongwook, who had arrived from Earth with a Sol Coalition warship 2 days earlier, immediately raised shields and prepared weapons. Administrator Kyung-soo tried to coordinate an evacuation plan. Everyone was terrified. Everyone except Haewon. She stood at the observation window staring up at the ships with an expression Daehyun had never seen before. It looked like sadness mixed with resignation. You know them, he said. Through their bond, he could feel her emotional turmoil. They are Velhari, Haewon said quietly. My people, or what became of them. When the Ilhari civilization fell, we split into factions. I and others like me chose stasis and guidance. They chose a different path. What path? Dr. Yuna asked. She had been studying the crystal seed constantly, barely sleeping. Control, enforcement. They believe the only way to prevent galactic catastrophe is to police emerging species strictly. They destroy civilizations that seem too dangerous. They contain others. They do not guide. They judge and punish. Before anyone could respond, a message came through on all frequencies. The translation AI worked on it, but Haewon spoke the words before the computer could finish. We have come to observe the trials. If humanity fails, we will cleanse this world before contamination spreads. The colony erupted in panic and anger. Admiral Dongwook demanded answers. People wanted to fight or flee. Kyung-soo tried to maintain order, but it was falling apart. Haewon raised her voice, speaking clearly. I must speak with them. Alone. Absolutely not, Admiral Dongwook said. We don't negotiate with threats. I am not negotiating. Am I talking to family? Haewon looked at Daehyun. I will return. Trust me. Through their bond, Daehyun felt her certainty and also her fear. But he nodded. Go. Haewon left in one of the Ilhari vessels from the hangar they had unlocked. She ascended to meet the Velhari ships. Hours passed with no communication. The colony waited in tense silence. When Haewon returned, she looked tired. They will observe but not interfere. Their leader, Rayon, is skeptical of humanity. He believes you will fail the remaining trials. I have convinced him to give you the chance to prove him wrong. Who is Rayon? Daehyun asked. My brother, Haewon said softly. We disagreed on how to help the galaxy. We have not spoken in 2,000 years. It was difficult to see him again. Before they could discuss it further, alarms started blaring again. But this time the threat came from within the colony, not from outside. The second trial had begun. It started with Administrator Kyung-soo. He was in a meeting when he suddenly stood up and accused his assistant of sabotage. His eyes were wild, his voice loud. He grabbed the assistant and had to be pulled away by security. Within an hour, similar incidents erupted throughout the colony. People turned on each other. Arguments became fights. Paranoia spread like wildfire. A scientist destroyed months of research, convinced her colleagues were stealing her work. Security guards refused to trust each other. Families fought over things that made no sense. Dr. Yuna examined several affected people. It's like a plague, but it's not biological. It's psychological. It's amplifying negative emotions, fear, anger, suspicion, greed. Everyone who catches it becomes the worst version of themselves. Haewon stood in the medical bay, looking at the chaos through the windows. The trial of compassion has manifested. This is how it works. Suffering spreads through your colony. The cure exists within the trial's design. But finding it requires helping those who are affected even when they become dangerous. Even when they attack you. Even when every instinct says to protect yourself instead. That's impossible, Taemin said. He had a bruise on his face from when an infected colonist had hit him. How are we supposed to help people who are trying to hurt us? That is the test, Haewon said. Compassion is easy when people are grateful. It is hard when they are hostile. The Ilhari failed this trial once, long ago. We let fear turn us against each other. We chose self-protection over helping those who suffered. It was the beginning of our fall. Daehyun felt sick. Through the windows, he could see the colony tearing itself apart. How do we stop it? By doing what seems impossible. By showing compassion when it is hardest. By helping even when you are hurt. By refusing to give up on anyone. Haewon looked at him. I can observe but cannot act directly. This must be your choice. Over the next hours, it got worse. Half the colony was infected. Violence erupted in multiple sectors. The infected people weren't monsters. They were still themselves, but twisted, controlled by their worst impulses. Dr. Yuna organized medical teams, but treating the infected was dangerous. They fought against help, sometimes violently. Bo Young tried to set up safe zones, but the infected kept sabotaging systems. Taemin attempted to talk people down from their paranoid delusions, getting hurt repeatedly in the process. Daehyun watched his team exhausting themselves. He watched colonists he knew becoming shadows of themselves. He felt helpless. Then Admiral Dongwook got infected. The Admiral had been coordinating defense against potential Velhari attack. When the plague hit him, his paranoia fixated on that threat. He became convinced the only way to save humanity was to destroy the Velhari ships before they destroyed the colony. He ordered his warship to prepare weapons and target the orbiting vessels. If he fires, the Velhari will retaliate, Haewon said. They will destroy the colony in self-defense. Rayon is looking for any excuse to prove humanity is dangerous. We have to stop him, Daehyun said. How? Dr. Yuna asked. He's locked himself in his ship's command center. The only way to stop him is to override the ship's systems or to kill him. Daehyun felt everyone looking at him. The easy choice was obvious. Use the Ilhari vessels to disable or destroy the Admiral's ship. Save the colony by removing the threat. But that would be choosing self-protection over compassion. That would be failing the trial. Through his bond with Haewon, Daehyun felt her holding her breath, hoping he would see another way. We talked to him, Daehyun said. We remind him who he is. He won't listen, Taemin said. The plague makes people impossible to reason with. Then we try anyway, Daehyun said. Bo Young, can you get me on a channel to the Admiral's ship? I can try. While Bo Young worked, Dae-hyun thought about what to say. The Admiral was a military man, dedicated to protecting humanity. That dedication had been twisted into paranoid aggression, but the core of who he was remained underneath. I have a channel, Bo Young said. It's audio only. He's blocked video. Dae-hyun took the communicator. Admiral Dong-wook, this is Dae-hyun. I need to talk to you. Stay away from my ship. The Admiral's voice was strained, manic. I know what I have to do. I have to protect Earth. I have to protect humanity from these aliens. I know you want to protect people. Dae-hyun said calmly. That's who you are. That's why you became an admiral. But firing on the Velhari ships won't protect anyone. It will start a war we can't win. They're going to attack anyway. I can see it. They're preparing weapons right now. Dae-hyun glanced at Hae-won, who shook her head. The Velhari ships weren't preparing weapons. The Admiral's infected mind was seeing threats that weren't there. Admiral, listen to me. Remember why you came here. You came because humanity made first contact. You came because this is the most important moment in our history. You came because you believe in what we can become. I came to protect it. You came to serve, Dae-hyun interrupted gently. That's what you've done your whole life. You've served humanity with honor. Don't let fear change that now. Don't let this thing inside your head make you into something you're not. There was silence on the line. Dae-hyun continued speaking, talking about duty and honor and the future. He talked about hope instead of fear. He reminded the Admiral of who he was beneath the infection. Minutes passed. The weapons on the Admiral's ship stayed armed, targeting solutions locked on the Velhari vessels. Then slowly the weapons powered down. The Admiral's voice cracked. I can feel it. This thing in my head. It's showing me enemies everywhere. But you're right. That's not me. That's not who I want to be. I know, Dae-hyun said. Come back to the colony. Let Dr. Yuna help you. I'm so tired, the Admiral whispered. I know. Come back. We'll figure this out together. The Admiral's ship docked at the colony. Dr. Yuna and her team were waiting, ready to help despite the danger. As they treated the Admiral, something changed. The compassion shown to him, the refusal to abandon him even when he was dangerous, seemed to create a ripple effect. Dae-hyun realized what was happening. The cure isn't a medicine, it's us. When we show compassion to the infected, when we help them despite the risk, it weakens the plague's hold. Empathy as a cure, Dr. Yuna breathed. That's brilliant and terrifying. They organized the healthy colonists into care teams. It was exhausting and dangerous work. People got hurt. The infected fought against help because the plague made them see threats in kindness. But slowly, person by person, the colony began to heal.